Good morning, folks. Today we are going to cover the configuration of Weblogic Server for JMS. We are basically going to do some Java programming where we will, do Java messaging service programming, and we'll be, programming it against Weblogic Server. For this particular module, it is all about just configuring WebLogic, and subsequently I'm going to post videos on JMS concepts, and then we'll do some JMS programming. All right, so to begin with, I am actually here in my Oracle home. If you have not installed WebLogic, I have another video posted which goes over how to install WebLogic. It's pretty straightforward. You can follow that along. And I'm here on a Mac, so we are essentially on a POSIX terminal, and this will appear and feel like a Unix or a Linux sort of terminal and a machine. In case of Windows, you will have a slightly different, instead of the slashes this way, it will be the other way. Instead of forward, it will be backward, and you would basically have the similar commands, and instead of the .shs, you would have .cmds and things like that. But it's pretty much the same thing. You can follow along. So I'm here in my Oracle home, and the other two files you see here are the ones that we had used for installing WebLogic. Now I'm going to navigate into my WebLogic server directory. So far we have used two significant directories here. One is the Oracle common. If you navigate in there and go, you can find the config.sh, which is used for configuring the WebLogic software. And the other one is the user projects, where if you navigate in, you have basically the start, WebLogic server shell script, etc. Right. So we are going to go in there, start up WebLogic server. So you want to navigate into your domain. When we installed, we had picked the base domain and basically picked the default. So the name is base domain. If at the time you had given a different name or a specific name, for your use, you would see that name here. So basically go into your domain, and the start weblogic.sh is what we are after. Again, you don't need to navigate all the way in here to start it. You could start it all the way from your Oracle home by giving the full path. But since we are learning right now, I wanted to come in here, show some of the files here. So this starts up our WebLogic server. Now we will go into the administration console and do the configuration work. The port is 7001. So URL is basically localhost 7001 console. Again, this information was available to us when we did the installation of WebLogic. When you finish the installation of WebLogic, in the last screen, you get this URL. But again, if you didn't note it, this is pretty standard. You can just use this URL. The ID is WebLogic, and when you installed, you gave a password. So we'll use that password. And we are in. Okay, so we are basically going to be working in the center area here in this JMS server and the JMS modules. Okay, so this is where we'll do our configuration. But before we get started, let's click on the servers here on the left here. Okay, and this is our server, admin server, running on 7001. This is the one we have logged on to. Okay, and this is the basically, again, if you take the defaults during installation, this is what you will get. So to navigate back into that home page, I will click up here. That brings me back here, and I'm going to set up a JMS server. I click on JMS server, I come to this page, click on new, and it is giving me some default name. I'm going to add something to it. The reason I'm adding it is in the future, if I am looking for things, I have to just search for this literal Ghoshal and I can find my things. So I will highly recommend, you could potentially keep the defaults, but I would recommend adding some sort of known literal, perhaps your name or company name or project name. That way you can later find these things. If supposing you set up something and then you don't know whether you set it up or didn't set it up, what happened, I can't see it. If you have some known literal, it will make life easy to find things later. So I think one of the advantages of doing that is then putting something like this. Click on next. Next is create a store or create a persistent store, and there are two things we can do here. One is we can set up a database or a file store. If you set up a database, you have to make sure that database is available. If you are in a company's deployment, you probably won't have a single server. You have multiple servers all clustered, and in that case the database also should be highly available so that we don't have a failure in the persistent store itself. For now, for our purpose, we just need a place where the message can be stored, and we're going to use a file store. And one of the things is considerations is, supposing you are using a file store for some reason and you're at work and you have 3 or 4 servers, and you want to make sure that the file store is on the same server as your server, as the JMS server. The idea is that you don't want a situation where, say, your JMS server 1 is putting its file store in JMS server 2 and JMS server 2 puts its file store in JMS server 1. Then if your JMS server 1 is available and the server 2 is down, your file store may be not available, so it will not work. So idea is, if you have multiple servers and you're using file store, that you put the file store on that same server, so that if that server is available, everything is available. Otherwise you'll have issues. Of course, if you use a database store, you make sure that the database is highly available. Okay. So I'm going to click here, new store. I'm going to pick a file store, and I'm going to stick again my name here. And you can, if you want to be well organized, you can provide a directory here where the data could go. But for now, I'm going to pick the default, but it's a good idea. You can also put a directory name like something /dat or something where you put your file. Okay, if you want to be organized. Again, this is basically we're doing some setup on the laptop or eventually doing a Java programming. Then the next thing is the target server. We have only one server, so we'll pick it. And then the persistent store we just created, I'm going to pick that, and that's targeted for the admin server, and I'm going to finish. That creates our JMS server. Next, we are going to go and create the JMS module. I'm going to call it same thing, and let's target it for admin server. And would you like to create? I will say yes. Of course, I can come back from the main screen, but we'll just keep going here. So now we get the resources tab or resources screen. I'm going to go ahead and create a new. I'm going to create a connection factory. Now here I'm going to give a slightly different kind of name, and the reason for this is that once we are done, if we follow naming convention the kind I'm doing here, it will be very nicely laid out in your JNDI tree. If you do not do that, and I say can keep going, giving Ghoshal, etc., it is going to be commingled with all sorts of information, and it is kind of tough to find these things. So later when you want to come and say, hey, what is my JNDI values, etc., When you come there, you will have a tough time finding it. So ideally, same thing like our package, com dot, your company name dot whatever, the reverse DNS sort of thing. You want to do the same thing here, then it'll be very nicely laid out and you can come and find your information. Okay, so I'm going to call it something like this. CF for connection factory. All right, and we'll take the defaults. Again, target is JMS server, and our connection factory is ready. Next, I'm going to create a distributed queue in which I'm going to follow the same thing, excepting I will call it a DQ. And finish. And you got a distributed queue. I'm going to create a distributed topic. Now the forwarding policy, there is replicated and partitioned. We'll cover this when we are looking at our JMS concepts. But for now, I'm going to leave it as replicated. Okay. If you want to do a little lookup, you can look these things up. Okay. But for now, for our purpose, I think this is good enough. And it's finished. So we have our connection factory, we have a queue and our topic set up. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to my server. I'm going to click here and I want to see the JNDI tree. If I come here now and I click on com, Goshal, Weblogic, base, and this is where my information is. Okay. So if you don't name it this way, then the information will be commingled all over the place and it'll be very tedious to find it. Okay, so you perhaps want to have it laid out this way. That way you can come back later and quickly find your information. Okay, so that sort of concludes our video. And if you like the video, if you think it's useful, please hit a like. That way I know that people are finding these videos useful. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comment section below and I will try to answer them. And thank you for watching. And next video we will do is on JMS concepts and then do some actual JMS Java programming. Okay, thank you.